preparation. It's a lot about preparation. Just be prepared. Listen to this podcast. Listen to people on this podcast who share their knowledge. It's right here in front of you for you to just learn from these experiences and make it better next time when you have the same experience.
Welcome to Learn or Be Learned. We either learn from others or others learn from us. The former is able to help us become a better, faster you. Follow me weekly as I dig up stories like a true anthropologist would on one of the 3 series called Guest Conversations, Book Applications, or my Small Talk Explorations. I'm your host, Shiva Danshaker, and let's talk. All right, welcome back, everybody. Today I am here with Jenna Suru. She is a filmmaker, an actor, actress, and she does many great things. And I'll let Jenna introduce herself. Jenna, welcome to Learn or Be Learned. I'm thankful to have you here. And would you like to introduce yourself a little bit further?
Sure. Hello, Shiva, and hello, everyone who is listening. Thanks so much for having me on the show today. I think you said it right. I'm a filmmaker. I make films about artists struggling with acceptance of their roles in the world, from a period drama feature like The Golden Age, which recently was centerpiece screening at the 21st edition of the Valley Film Festival, and also picked the Best Foreign Feature Award at the opening night of the Franklin International Indie Film Festival. Thank you so much. We are very thrilled for the success of the film. And I'm also the director of the Paris International Film Festival and very involved with festivals in general, including Canneseries, the TV equivalent of the Cannes Film Festival organized with MIP Markets.
Mm-hmm. And how big is the Paris Film Festival?
It's huge. No, actually. Well, we typically screen about 50 projects every year. We have various categories. We welcome feature films, short films. This year we have a new category, which is a photography project category, which we are very excited about, to highlight a little more also on cinematography and the work on light. Also, we have a script competition, and we work with incredible partners. We love partnering with like Zay's Group, We Audition, Scriptation. Of course, our partner in crime with this, especially since the pandemic hit, Filmocracy, so that the festival can be accessible to most people. We really are at the Paris International Film Festival highlighting on filmmakers who have a positive message for change. So this is what we are quite excited about.
Mm-hmm. And how many people attend this festival yearly now?
Typically about 1,000. So it's relatively big for France, relatively small compared to obviously all the festivals that we know, like Cannes Film Festival, Toronto, AFM, the market. We really highlight on a pool of filmmakers who have a story which brings change either in front of the camera or sometimes even behind camera. So, for instance, for the recent edition of the Paris International Film Festival, our jury winner is Crime. It's a feature film directed by Nora Lakosh and written by herself and Frujina Fekete, which is now streaming on HBO in Hungary.
Mm-hmm.
We also have 4 change categories. So in the documentary for change category, Pioneers in Skirts, which highlights on gender equality in our industries, directed by Ashley Maria, picked up the award and was screened recently at the UN. So we really highlight on the filmmakers who have a film with international potential and a positive message that they are really excited to spread with the world.
Wow. And I saw that you had your own film, right? We talked about this a little bit, The Golden Age, correct?
Yes, exactly. In French, L'Âge d'Or, and indeed the English title is The Golden Age.
Mm. And you were the one of the main protagonists in that film?
Absolutely. My character name is Angèle Deveau. Um, she is a tribute to all the incredible artists, including, of course, women who have been bringing change. The film is set in the 60s, so it's an era for massive change from color television to contraception in a difficult context, a context of war, the Vietnam War, also the decades which followed, of course, World War II, World War One, and it was an incredibly fascinating era. And it was our great honor to pay tribute to all these great artists who flew to Saint-Tropez, for instance, on the French Riviera, and really fought to bring change through their art and through their activism.
Hmm. And were you the director or producer of the film as well?
All of the above. So this is The Golden Age is my debut as a director, my debut feature. I'm also the only producer. I wrote the story, and I'm the lead female in the film.
Hmm. And that must have come with a lot of balancing of tasks, right? Because those are all very heavy jobs. How did you manage to balance all the workload, the script, memorizing lines and doing all of that?
Oh, thanks so much for mentioning. Well, it did come with a lot of preparation in the first place. Being able to direct and act at the same time, for instance, requires a lot of work with the team. So I wrote the script and I started storyboarding it. So I storyboarded the whole film myself. Worked on all the locations. We filmed the Golden Age in 35 exceptional locations for the audience to enjoy, from Notre Dame Cathedral to where the film God Created Women, on the Saint-Tropez Harbor, also LA. And it was a lot of work with the various departments. So I rehearsed extensively with the cast to develop their characters and also to develop their interactions and relationships with my character Angèle, with every department from DP to costume designer, wardrobe, makeup and hair, obviously locations. All the filming was extremely prepared, and I think here it was really key for me to be able to. With obviously still a really massive team, an incredible team I've loved working with, to come to a result that we are proud of and excited to share with our audience. So I would say a lot of preparation was really key, and then of course a lot of work.
And what was the biggest struggle you saw when doing a project this big, or the struggle you had to overcome?
In terms of actual struggles, I would say there were some challenges at every stage. Of course, the first real struggle was to finance the film, um, because I wanted to make sure that the story we wanted to tell would still remain the same story and would be protected. So I actually ended up attaching a couple of investors, and just working a lot myself to finance the film with basically my work, and re-injecting those sales in the investment of the film. That was a difficult part, because it did come with something that was really core to the film, which is that I obviously didn't want to change too much of the story which we wanted to tell, and that was really important for us, because the telling the story of the world-changing terms of 60s Saint-Tropez has never been made before, and it was really important for us that the story does reflect Tropesians and also the actual roles of females in this fight, and that it doesn't become too rom-com or too different from the authenticity of the story, the real story from the 60s. So I would say this was probably the first struggle with the film. Overall, it's been very challenging. Making a film, it takes a lot of work, but it's been every day has been and still is a joy. It's been a massive honor to tell this tribute. Tropezians have been such a massive help, all of partners, and we've been filming in locations which were all absolutely exceptional, and we were just so honored, and we really wanted and want to tell a story that the audience can enjoy, and also to pay tribute to these artists and these inhabitants which truly changed the world.
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely finance is always definitely, if not one of the first obstacles and barriers a lot of people have to face in a lot of things they do, right? And I think with that comes a lot of other things like delayed gratification, saving that money for something that you are enjoying and passionately doing, which is for you the film, and putting that money aside for that rather than, you know, that might have taken some expenses from other portions of your life. So it's very noble to hear that allocated your money for something you felt was important.
Oh, 100%. And it's so interesting to see how sometimes the world actually shows you signs of a film which really wants to get made. We've been the last drama ever filmed at Notre Dame Cathedral before the fires. Um, we we've been extremely lucky, even in the festival distribution. We actually were opening night of one of the very last festivals which ran before the pandemic at the Genesis Cinema in London. It's a 10-day festival, and I stayed the whole time. The festival was cut a little short at the end. The second weekend couldn't happen because of the sudden confinement. But on the previous weekend, we sold out, and we were awarded with the main award there in the beautiful Genesis Cinema. And it was actually there are some signs, I think, along the way which show sometimes that you just are doing a film which is really meaningful, and that your audience can really identify with, because of the tribute of the films to the world changing terms of 60s Saint-Tropez, so to the joy of the 60s, but also to more difficult times. The golden age also raises awareness about suicide and about mental health. So it was just beautiful to see that all of these messages were just so important and so true to the times we are living today. So it's great to know that the film can also help spread the love and the joy, and also the history, which gives you the resilience to go through these times.
Right. And I loved how you mentioned signs, and I'd like to go into that a little bit further because who knows whether signs are really signs or not, but what matters is how you perceive those. And I think signs can be really helpful for motivating you, keeping you going, giving you confidence or courage. And I wanted to ask, what was some of those signs you saw that, okay, we're on the right path. This is reassuring to hear or see.
So many. Thank you for mentioning the signs. Well, first, the love for the script, from my co-actor Sebastian Cipolla to the inhabitants, all the partners. There are some signs which show that your film really wants to get made, but then also many more, more signs which it's harder to explain. Like, for instance, we were so lucky that I remember there are always times when it rains. So obviously it's kind of the filmmaker's nightmare, the rain and when it pours. So each time it only rained when we were not filming. Basically, it's like I would say, okay, wrap for the day, and then it rained in Ramatuelle, or also one of the most maybe interesting times were when we were filming on one of these very, very famous places in Saint-Tropez, which people who know the village already love, which is the Bar du Sud. It's right on the harbor. And so we called wrap for the day at 4 p.m. and it was a beautiful dancing scene right in this bar. And when we call wrap of the day, there is this massive yacht boat which parked in front of us, so we could actually, see the shadow coming to us. And we were just so lucky that we were wrapped for the day, because obviously we had this amazing shots of the harbor completely period. So it was beautiful to see all sometimes you do things the world really wants you to make the film. It's beautiful to see. It's very heartwarming when it happens.
Yeah, I think science can be very important for, keeping you going like we talked about, or, visualizing the end of the film as you see it happening in a beautiful scene or a moment, I think is incredible. And I want to ask you next is what you said that people really wanted to see this happen, see this film happen. How did you come up with the idea for this film, or how do you generally come up with ideas? What is your creative thought process?
The core idea of a film really is what's most important. We often talked about the script, and that is absolutely right. A script also can change, and what really can't change is your core idea and the story that you're telling. Um, the story I really wanted to tell was really the combination of two main things. The first is this love I have and that we all have for these villages, Saint-Tropez, Ramatuelle, even Paris and LA. Like it's been absolutely exceptional to be able to tell this story. Saint-Tropez really was and still is an artistic hub for change makers who really want to, at the time, and enjoy 60s douce France, and all this beautiful era, but also time for change. And 1967 was obviously the year of the hippies, and then Mai 68 happened, and Woodstock, and the Isle of Wight. It was a time where all a lot of generations, especially the younger ones, really were fighting for change so that war never happens again, in a difficult context of Vietnam War, but also of riots in America and many Western countries. So my core idea really was to tell this story, to give hope to artists and anyone who wants to bring change through the joy of this village that we love so much, because the Golden Age really is a love letter to Saint-Tropez and Ramatuelle, and also Paris, through a story which does combine both this joy and this excitement of the dancing and the music, but also shows how artists can bring true change, which really still exists now.
Right. And I think that's incredible because art comes in many forms, whether it's painting, drawing, podcasts, film. I
Yes.
think art comes in many forms and they all have their own communication. Even music. What's nice about hearing music that doesn't always have lyrics is it allows room for interpretation. The same way you see in a film, you might see a scene where there's not very many word exchanges, or there's a dance, or there's just music and then background of like a horizon or something, right? And I think that's the beauty of art, is allows you to put your personal touch of what you have experienced, felt, and thought into the artwork.
Oh my God, 100%. I can only relate with this. I'm sure any artist who has painted or has written or has made movies, at some point we all have to make choices, right? So the choice
Hmm.
often comes to, and you mentioned it, right, Shiva, at the beginning of this podcast. What about finances? Like, you have to make choices in terms of how far are you ready to go to make this film or this art, and also what kind of compromises, because you're always kind of making compromises, but at the same time you need to know what you can't compromise, like the story or the message, or it can be sometimes even something else that you have in mind. And it's so beautiful indeed to see that those can be revealed through many forms. And this is why I love cinema so much, is that it's the combination of images and acting and music. And Gibson is a partner of a film, and I also produce the soundtrack, which is made of titles of Chuck Berry, Jimmy Reed, and that we performed with a British band that I picked for the soundtrack of the Golden Age. And it's just producing the music in itself was such an excitement, and it's
Right.
wonderful to see indeed how much you can bring just through art, which is not even words.
And, as humans, we have the left side and the right side of our brain where we have, the analytical and creative side. Do you think that all of us are somewhat of an artist at something?
Oh, wow. Are we all artists? I think probably we've been artists for a long time, right? From the cavemen and cavewomen in Lascaux who started painting, and it's so fascinating to see. I love always thinking about these artworks and this history, because it tells a lot about the humans that we are. And I'm wondering how it happened at the very first time a caveman or cavewoman started painting, and how she or he felt, or why. Yes, I think it's definitely something that we humans have in us. I probably would say, I don't know how you feel about this. I think probably some have um, more desire to pursue it, to actually, invest time into it, and develop these skills. But I'm definitely sure that it's in us somewhere.
Right. I think I'd have to agree with that. I think that um, there's also things about how there's different types of intelligence. Some people are more musically inclined and things like that nature. So I think there is advantages for people that really do enjoy art and some sort of creative outlet. They end up being the ones that more often pursue it. Sometimes people don't. Sometimes people don't experiment. They didn't know that they would be good at it. But I actually, my first two episodes on this podcast was over a book called Bored and Brilliant, and talked about how being bored and just sitting around doing nothing sometimes can be beneficial because it unlocks your creativity. And I think that's interesting because I think a lot of us maybe don't even know if we're going to be a good
Yeah,
artist,
yeah.
or good at drawing, or are good at making music, or being a pianist, because we are in such a world where we're always bombarded with, notifications, text messages, all sorts of things, and TV, and we don't explore creative outlets too.
Mental space is so important. This is what I love about the 60s, right? Because at the time they were a bit less distractions, but they were still there. They were still there, and the golden age also tackles on that. So I really relate with what you say, and it's important to make the space. And emptiness, as you mentioned, is a great outlet for creativity. And I think we can also create it ourselves. It's all about, I guess, being focused. So I'm not going to give any spoiler, but it's also obviously it's a message of a film, because it is something that all of us artists or inspiring artists experience at some point of our careers, or just our inspiration. We do. There is also what we call writer's block. There is also these moments where all of a sudden we feel a lot of inspiration, and it's about understanding how we work as artists. And this is what I love as a director. I love working. We mentioned preparation. I also just love the fact that we are all so different as artists, and artistic connection is so important, so that as a director, I can really help everyone in the casting crew to give the best of himself or herself. And all of this comes together into a movie we are all proud of. It's beautiful.
hmm I love how you mentioned, writer's block, because I have a couple great examples. Is one, a friend of mine lost his passport, and he was trying to look for it everywhere. And I said, for me, what I've noticed is, and I know how stressful this can be because he needed it to travel. But I told him sometimes it's when you least look for an object is when you find it. And I'm sure we've all experienced that. You keep looking for something, you don't know where it is. But I think it's that block in your brain that you're
Yes.
not actually in like a flow state or an open state to actually remember where you left it. So then you start making up all these weird ideas like, oh, maybe the passport is underneath the couch somehow, or things that never really would have happened, when in reality maybe it was in your backpack in a different pocket that you don't normally put, and then all of a sudden you're cooking dinner and you remember that. And
Yes, exactly. All of a sudden,
right,
it's
right.
right in front of you.
And the same thing happened with when I was trying to come up with the name for this podcast, Learn or Be Learned.
We love it, by the
I
way.
What's that?
I love it. I love the name of this podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. And the thing with this name was, I had a list of names for this podcast, and that wasn't one of them. And I asked people, I held surveys, I couldn't think of something, and I thought, okay, something will come to me, maybe, maybe. And I think about a week or two later, I don't even know what I was doing. It was nothing productive at that moment, but it just came to me. I was like, oh wow,
Wow.
wait, I like this name a lot. And then I went with it, and it was awesome. But what I'm trying to say is, sometimes our highest creativity comes when we are, most relaxed or bored or able to unlock this flow state. And with that, I want to follow up. Did you feel that, or have a similar situation when you were creating this film, whether it was producing a scene on the spot or coming up with the name of the film?
Yes, I 100%. So first, about notifications, so we made sure we cut our social media on set and when rehearsing. I also
Mm-hmm.
believe in the importance of just being focused, and also in energies and being in the right energy for the scene and the character. But just generally speaking, for anyone in the cast and crew to be focused and making sure you don't get distracted by things which are basically wasting your time. There is a time for everything, so focus is extremely important. In terms of all that you've said, yes, 100%. Oh my God, so many times I woke up in the middle of the night and I would just literally switch my light on and start writing because I had this great idea for, or what I felt was a good idea. But it's actually interesting because I wrote a lot of the film as a screaming from the heart. I started writing one of the main centerpiece scenes, which is really about change, and it's quite a simple scene, but with a very core message for the film. So, and it's about the Vietnam War, and it's always been something really important for us. In the the team, so it was beautiful to see it really resonated also with the audience at festivals so far.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, this time sometimes where you are not doing much, or you're sleeping, or you're not doing anything, you're just laying on the beach. If you're lucky, like laying on the beach somewhere, and you're like, oh my God, I have this great idea.
Mm-hmm.
All the time, all the time. It's really interesting, right? Sometimes you're like, it's a lot about, I guess, not forcing it. Like there are some ways you can sit down and make yourself have ideas and inspiration, but sometimes you must also trust your project and respect your projects. Like, I've always believed in this movie and in this idea, so I would let also sometimes inspiration come to me naturally. Sometimes it's almost like your story is driving you more than you are
Mm-hmm.
driving the story. It has its own lives, if you
Right,
like.
right. So, Jenna, lastly, I want to ask you, this show obviously is called Learn or Be Learned. So, the last question I want to ask is, what is one piece of advice that you have that people can either learn from you or that you've learned from someone else that helped you create the film that you wanted, and or helped you organize a large festival, what is one piece of advice that you either learned from someone or want others to learn from you?
I've learned so much from all the incredible people who opened their hearts to me about the 60s or their history, who told me love stories, war stories. So that is a vast question. In terms of, of just life in general, I think the pandemic was also a great lesson for all of us to have that emptiness and realize what really mattered to us. I would say to anyone listening, like, just know what really matters to you, and what you love doing or who you love, and just pursue that, and never give up on things that truly, don't be stupid. Don't waste what is most precious to you. Just protect what is precious to you. And in terms of being a filmmaker, I've learned so much throughout the years from also the best professionals. So I would say preparation. It's a lot about
Hmm.
preparation. Just be prepared. Listen to this podcast. Listen to people on this podcast who share their knowledge. It's right here in front of you for you to just learn from these experiences, and make it better next time when you have the same experience. There are plenty of wonderful trainings out there, whether on screen skills or Sundance collab, you can learn from. Knowledge really is power. Make sure that you surround yourself with people who want to see you succeed, and want to partner with you, and make sure you really nurture these relationships, because they are key to your success, because no success if is possible or worth living by yourself. And also be ready to adapt, because even if you learn a lot, you'll always have to adapt last minute, right? This is how it works sometimes.
Hmm. Right. And I just want to say I love this question because yeah, it's very broad and it's very interesting to hear, you have to pick one little general area, right? Because there's so many things we all learn, and I think you had a great answer. You said, be adaptable, be prepared, and always keep learning. And I think those are really important when it comes to, doing the things that interest you and the things that you truly pursue in life.
Exactly. It's all
Hmm.
about what truly matters to you. And as you mentioned, it's about knowing it, just realizing what truly matters to you rather than feeling the distraction, which can happen often,
Exactly. Right.
realistically.
Well, anyways, thank you, Jenna, for being on the show. Before we wrap this up, I wanted to ask you, where can the audience find your film if they would like to watch it?
The trailer of The Golden Age is available with all its social media, and also for Paris International Film Festival on my website. It's jennasuru.com.
Okay. And I'll have that in the podcast description so for easier access.
Thank you so much for having me on, Shiva. It's a massive pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for being here, Jenna. And thank you all for watching till the end. And I'll see you on the next episode.